You all know how much I love single player games, because I have no friends, so single player games are always better for me. No, but seriously, I just much prefer the single player experience a lot. I often find that my online experience gets ruined by, well, other people. Is my antisocial side showing? So today I want to go over some of the best looking and sounding single player games that are coming out in the somewhat near future that you should all be extremely excited for. So without wasting any time, let's just dive straight into it. First announced all the way back in 2021, we have Insomniac's Wolverine, fitting since Spider-Man 2 should be released by the time this video goes live. Wolverine is of course being created by Insomniac, the amazing folks behind Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2 and Miles Morales. Wolverine aims to be a very violent game coming in hot with an M for mature rating. Now of everything on this list, this is my second most anticipated game, following suit with the two Spider-Man games and the currently praised Spider-Man 2 by early reviewers. I am recording this a week before Spider-Man 2 is live, by the way. There's almost no doubt to anybody that Wolverine will continue on the massive success of a single player story-driven Marvel game from the once again fantastic folks over at Insomniac. Now sadly we don't know a release date yet, but I personally expect the game to release within the next 2 to 3 years. Keep your eyes on this one for sure. Next up we have Stalker 2. Now Stalker 2 has gone through a lot, to say the very least, with the vast majority of the team behind the game sadly being affected by the war in Ukraine. But on a much more positive note, the game has an aimed release window of Q1 2024, and while Stalker 2 will apparently feature an online mode, its focus is single player, according to devs. Stalker 2 will take you to the heart of Chernobyl, hence its full name, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, and will feature a post-apocalyptic radiation-filled open-world wasteland. So if there are any fellow Fallout fanboys like myself watching, you're definitely going to want to keep your eyes peeled for this release. Moving on, we have Doom Year Zero, coming from Bethesda Softworks and id Software, the same creators of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Now unlike the others on the list, Doom Year Zero hasn't officially been announced, and instead was leaked just a few weeks ago alongside other pretty massive leaks which I've of course covered on another video on the channel. Now we sadly don't know anything about Doom Year Zero, to the point where we don't even know if this is an official title or if it's just a placeholder. So with no release date or any news in sight, and with QuakeCon just gone, it doesn't look like this one's coming anytime soon. But as a massive Doom fanboy, I had to throw it on the list, because I am majorly looking forward to the day that I get to rip and tear my way through a new Doom game. Now I am positive that Star Wars Outlaws is definitely one that you've all heard about, as the internet pretty much lost their mind when it was announced. Star Wars Outlaws is an up-and-coming open-world single-player game being created by Ubisoft. From the little we know, we can confirm that the game will take place during the period between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. We also know that the game will be in third person and also feature an open world, but how big that open world is, we still aren't sure. Ghost of Tsushima 2 is the sequel, of course, to Ghost of Tsushima, one of the best open world games I've ever had the pleasure to play. Sucker Punch Studios is rumoured to be working on the sequel, but sadly we don't know much besides that. Some insiders have claimed that the game is near enough ready to actually release, but there hasn't been much evidence to prove that, as far as my research can tell me. Again, we sadly don't know much, so let's move on. Next up we have Avowed, an Xbox and PC exclusive game coming in 2024, set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. Avowed is definitely anticipated, coming from Obsidian, the creators of Fallout New Vegas, that some would argue is the best RPG of all time. Now while some fans have argued that Avowed looks very dated, and I do somewhat agree, there's still a lot of hype surrounding it and almost no denying that it will be a good single player RPG, because Obsidian are usually fantastic at making those. And honestly, that's a take I also agree with. But keeping on with the same fantasy vibe, we have Elder Scrolls 6, one of the single most anticipated games of all time. Coming off the huge success of Skyrim, Fallout 4 and now Starfield especially, Elder Scrolls 6 is Bethesda Game Studios' next big game, and will undoubtedly be a hit. The game has been in early development for a few years now, still with no release date in sight sadly, because Bethesda love to keep everything close to their chest, but the rumour is Elder Scrolls 6 will release between 2027 and 2029, which does add up with Bethesda Game Studios' usual timetable. The Elder Scrolls 6 is now in full development, so hopefully it won't be long until we finally start hearing some news and seeing some leaks for this game. I actually mostly focus on Bethesda content on my channel, so why don't you consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date on everything Elder Scrolls 6. But moving on, we have a fairly underrated one here that almost nobody is talking about, The Last Ronin, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. The Last Ronin is based on the TMNT comic books of the same name, and will be about the final surviving member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who is now on a quest for revenge in a ruined New York City. The synopsis says that the lone turtle will embark on a seamlessly hopeless mission, seeking justice for the family that he lost. Definitely going in the more darker route, which sounds fantastic to me because I hugely prefer the dark TMNT stories from the comics, rather than the kid-friendly cartoons, which I do still love. Sadly, we don't know much else and there is no release window that has been given, so let's move on to number 9. An untitled Black Panther game is coming from Cliffhanger Studios, aka EA. After years of rumours online, EA finally announced the Black Panther game a while back. Like a lot of these games, we still don't know much, and it could be a hot minute until we hear anything of note. But we do know that it's third person, single player, and telling an original story, and will also have a big focus on action, according to EA. I personally am hoping for a huge open world in Wakanda. I think that would be awesome, and I genuinely hope that they take some inspiration from Insomniac, who of course have been killing it with their Marvel games. But speaking of Marvel games, Iron Man is another untitled upcoming game, once again being created by EA. Just like Black Panther, we know that Iron Man will be third person, single player, action focused game, most likely set in either New York City or California. The game is very likely far away from being released though, since we just heard that EA are looking to hire more staff to help with the game, meaning it likely isn't far along the development cycle. For the third Bethesda game on this list, they are absolutely killing it with their single player games as always. We have Indiana Jones. Now this is a game I actually really hope to make a lot of content on in the future. We know very little about this game, again I know, of course being created by Bethesda's Machine Games, the same folks behind the Wolfenstein series. Now back in August of this year we heard how Indiana Jones is about halfway through its dev cycle, meaning we likely won't see it until very late 2024 or even late 2025 or later. We've heard how Indiana Jones will focus on exploration and storytelling, but sadly we haven't seen any proper gameplay of it yet. The Walking Dead Destinies is definitely one that almost nobody is talking about. This game aims to be a fantastic one, and actually releases at the end of this year. While the graphics certainly leave something to be desired, I mean it looks like a PS3 game for God's sake, the actual concept of this game sounds and looks awesome, especially as a huge Walking Dead fan. You'll basically play through seasons of the show but have options to do things differently and see different outcomes. For example, you can choose to save or kill certain characters and see how the story pans out if, say, a major character dies early on. See if someone will die if you do something different to the show. Imagine the Marvel What If series, but in a Walking Dead video game basically. But hey, that's pretty much everything on my list. These are the 12 best looking or sounding video games coming in the next few years, hopefully. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave it a like as it really helps out, and of course let me know in the comments which of these games you are the most interested in. Also please do consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date on a lot of these games. I'll be covering the vast majority of them once we actually finally start to get news. We love single player games over here, so if you do too, then this is absolutely the place for you. Lastly, as always, a huge massive thank you to our channel members for the, again, continued support every single month. You're all legends and I cannot thank you enough. But with that all said and done, I thank you all so much for watching and I really hope to see you next time. Peace.